Variety's gala backfired. Meghan went from cattle call to royalty, back to cattle call. Hello everyone, welcome back to the King YouTube channel. As you already know, last weekend Meghan Markle showed up to the Power of Women Gala red carpet. Reportedly, she wasn't even on the invite list, but when did that ever stop her from showing up somewhere? So maybe she achieved her ambition to become the most famous person in the world, and she may also have become right now the most infamous, but in spite of all that, can there ever have been anybody who has a thicker skin? It is amazing how Meghan Markle fails time and time again. I mean, she just makes the same mistakes again and again. She was inappropriately dressed in clothing that didn't really fit her, and she showed up, usually uninvited, and tried to grab a microphone. And of course, as always, she had to make it all about her. And then she looks around with that maniacal grin on her face while people try their best to avoid her. The people who do talk to her are not the A-listers she wants to attract. Instead, they are just bit-part players who want to get their names in the news. She will do anything, though, to get attention from the media. That's all that matters to her. She doesn't seem to care if people love her or if she's even popular. Either she doesn't notice or she simply doesn't care that she has so few friends who are ready to support her. Instead, she just goes on her merry way, often humiliating her hosts by being there and or her embarrassing behavior. She walks away, she grins at everybody, and then she does exactly the same thing right after that. So either she has a really bad case of short-term amnesia, or she just never learns from her mistakes. Does she really believe everything is going to change one day, and all of a sudden we're going to wake up and realize how wrong we have been about her? That we're going to decide she really is just this kind, loving, misunderstood, gentle philanthropist? That she's actually selfless and she just wants to help people who can't help themselves? Does she think nobody has been paying attention to what she's been up to all these years, ever since she got with Harry? Does she really believe her lies and her denigration of the royal family, and her own family for that matter, were just little blips on the radar that people quickly forgot about? And eventually we are going to wake up to the fact that the Meghan we have seen up until this point is not really bearing any resemblance to the person she really is deep inside. Does she believe we're just gonna all of a sudden forget everything that she and Harry have said and done over the past few years, and that we're gonna become so enamored with her that we just forget all her misdeeds? Variety, National Enquirer, and other publications like that are more than happy to write puff pieces about Meghan because they hope it's gonna sell some copies. Let's be real, that's what it's about. If I recall correctly, Meghan and Harry were all over the front covers of every single magazine when they first got to the US. Until, of course, the industry finally woke up to the fact that having them on there had the opposite effect. So perhaps that has changed again now, but there's nothing new about them coming out. Meghan on the red carpet, Meghan wearing a long dress or a trouser suit or whatever, and usually she needs to show off at least one of her really skinny sharp shoulders, preferably both. I think, though, Meghan is becoming more and more desperate by the day. I mean, is she ever gonna get her breakthrough in Hollywood that she's been waiting her entire life for? Can WME get her a substantial contract that's gonna give her everything that she wants? Obviously, Meghan went from cattle call to royalty, and now she's right back to cattle call. Remember how Meghan refused to show up to anything unless she was getting an award and giving a speech? Remember how Meghan was marching in front of the veterans at the Invictus Games? Well, it looks like those days are behind us. This Variety Power of Women gala showed her being shoved along the red carpet like a regular old Z-lister, because that's what she is. It was obvious why Meghan showed up there. She showed up because she needed to be seen. And there she was, trying to get her picture taken with all the Hollywood bigwigs. I mean, this woman had power and dignitaries at her fingertips, and she threw it all away because she believed she was better than the royals. Well, again, Meghan is discussing her projects, but we don't know anything specific about these projects, so most likely she doesn't have anything happening. So actually, there is a name for this tactic. It's called future faking, and it's a common narcissistic tactic. And this has actually been going on for over a year now. Now, puff piece after puff piece about the next big thing in Meghan's career. At what point does a woman in her late 40s with a couple of invisible children stop chasing after fame? Clearly, the big break is never going to happen for her. Hollywood is not meant for old people, I'm sorry. It's a bit like the NBA or the NFL. People do not start at it when they're 42 years old, and she's probably not even 42, she's more like 50. Meghan should feel incredibly lucky for the successful run that she had. She had a lot of potential in her career and in the royal family. But see, narcissism got in her way. Her addiction to fame is a real problem for her. She literally had to be pushed off the red carpet. She wasn't going to leave otherwise. Now, if she were a real royal, I don't think they would have done that. Actually, what Meghan has is worse than an addiction to drugs, because narcissism is a personality disorder. It cannot be cured. But a drug abuser can be cured if they want to be. Meghan, I'm afraid, is never going to change. There are simply not enough pills in the world for her to take to change who she is. She could get some good therapy that would give some hope of change, but even then, it's very difficult. It's a very long-term process, and its success relies on the willingness of the person with narcissism to both acknowledge their problems and commit to changing for the better. So I don't believe Meghan's ever going to change because she sees no problem with her behavior. I mean, this personality disorder has been a part of her for way too long now. And I can't diagnose her, of course. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I have watched her, I've listened to her, and I do happen to know a lot about NPD. So in my opinion, Meghan has at least one personality disorder, and you can see she shows the traits of NPD in her behavior. Usually, people with NPD refuse to acknowledge that there's anything wrong with them. The problems their personalities create are always somebody else's fault, because after all, they're perfect. If you even suggest to them that they could possibly benefit from therapy, usually they are very offended, they're insulted, and they'll throw that back in your face, because after all, they don't have any problem. It's us with the problem. As for Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, I do feel sorry for him in some ways, because Meghan treats him like crap. But at the same time, I think people are too quick to defend him sometimes because he loves to play the victim just like Meghan. At one point, pretty early on, he did an interview and he said the royal family owed him. I mean, he also has a sense of entitlement. I think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in that family. And when everything went badly and he was in the hospital, he sent Meghan a text message. Something like, "I'm sorry I didn't die." Well, is it any wonder then that Meghan is like she is? She plays the victim and she throws out these death threats like t-shirts at a ball game. He pushed her false narrative of that dish soap commercial. That was him. He went out of his way to make Meghan feel special when she wasn't, and he wasn't honest with her. Early on, Meghan figured out that the truth isn't actually so important. And then we got to factor in her parents' divorce, her mother's absence, her feelings of being this ugly duckling, her early plastic surgery, her need to be the best student, and we got a recipe for narcissism and being a psychopath. People need to be a lot more direct with Meghan, and they need to convince her that it is not all about her. That's also what an agent is for in LA, to get their client noticed. Otherwise, the client doesn't get any work and the agent doesn't get any commission. After all, her aide had to come and try to push her forward after Meghan Markle's time was up center stage. She cannot read a room. She was going to stay there as long as she could if somebody didn't shove her out of the way. Just think about the way she gatecrashed Kevin Costner's event, and then she grabbed that microphone. She showed up uninvited to the veterans event in New York, wearing a poorly fitting and completely inappropriate dress. If Meghan wants to make it big, she needs to learn how a lady behaves, and she needs to deal with her behavior. But since she is not a lady and she doesn't act like royalty, she hasn't learned what she's doing wrong by now, and there is no hope for her. Harry and Meghan also need to think carefully about who in the family wants to see them. I mean, they're the ones who caused all these problems, and now they're saying they're ready to make peace. Who do they think they are? And Harry still has a court case against the Mail, which he also blames the family for. There are many things the family will probably never forgive Harry for, but I think one thing that William is certainly never going to forgive him for is that it was Harry who caused William to be too late to see his grandmother before she passed away. If that is not an unforgivable act, I don't know what is. Harry and Meghan still want an apology from the royal family, but again, for what? Are they ready to forgive the royal family? Well, the royal family never asked for forgiveness because they know they didn't do anything wrong. The only reason they're wanting to reconnect with Harry's family is because they're desperate. They know they are nothing without that royal connection. If you ask me, it's the people of the UK and the Commonwealth who deserve an apology. Harry let everybody down. He disrespected the beloved Queen. He betrayed the Invictus Games. He betrayed the memory of his late mother. He called everybody racist. If he issued a genuine apology, maybe he could be accepted back alone, but he would have to be forced into a low-key role like his Uncle Andrew. But that wouldn't sit right with him because he's so arrogant. As for Christmas, I think it's going to be pretty low-key. They are going to be missing and remembering the late queen this year. Would Meghan like that, though? No, she has to be the star. I look forward to the King's Christmas Day speech, and I do wonder if he's going to mention the invisible grandchildren. And you, what do you think about this news? Please let me know your opinion below in the comments section. Before you go, please don't hesitate to like and share this video with anybody else who would enjoy it. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.